Hello all and welcome to a brand new Parry's Pickup. Thank you very much for joining us today. So we've got another mixed selection of games for you today. First of all, we'll start off with, what shall we start off with? What would you like? Would you like a Super Nintendo game? I can manage that. We have, now, if you've seen the last episode, you remember I talked a little bit about Tetris Attack for the Game Boy. Well, now we have Tetris Attack for the Super Nintendo, and I got this at a very reasonable price, I think, for a box Super Nintendo game, as these things just seem to be skyrocketing in prices. Like, it's about £15, all delivery included, so pretty happy with this one. It's a great game. I already knew that going into it. Playing a lot of Pokemon Puzzle League lately, and I've been playing a bit of the Game Boy one. This one's fantastic. It's got a Yoshi's Island theme, which is great. This whole game was reskinned when it was released in the West. In Japan, it didn't actually have this Yoshi theme. It was totally different. But I think it really nicely presented. The game plays as well as any other version of Tetris Attack. There's quite a lot of game modes on offer too here, so plenty to keep you going. I would totally recommend this game to any puzzle fan, and I'm sure if you are a fan of puzzle games, you probably already played this. What's a real shame though, I guess, is that there isn't a current gen version of this game on any format. A Nintendo Switch version would be fantastic. Maybe when they get their eShop sorted to also include older Nintendo games, then this is one that they should include. Although I'm probably sure they haven't re-released this game because of the Tetris in the title. There's probably some licensing issues, because as I said before, it's not actually anything to do with Tetris. But it's a really fun, enjoyable game, and I can't recommend it enough. So let's move on now to, well, we're on the subject of Super Nintendo. Let's just talk about one more Super Nintendo game. This one is absolutely fantastic. I would even go as far as saying it's a hidden gem. This is Super Widgit. So Widgit the World Watcher, I think he was known as. This was a cartoon that was on when I was a kid, and I used to watch it now and again. Wasn't a massive fan of it, but the game is really fun. It's not the most difficult game I've ever played, which is fine. You know, I actually just enjoy playing platform games, so you know it's a little challenging but not too challenging. It's a good one for younger kids as well, but it's got some unique mechanics going on. Widget can turn into all kinds of different characters, and that really adds a lot of variety to the gameplay. You can turn into an octopus, an ostrich, well, there's quite a few. There's a big muscle man. Each level seems to have a couple of different transformations for Widget, and this basically makes you a little bit more powerful. Also acts as an extra chance, an extra try, because once you get hit in Widget, I think that's it. You die, so you lose a life. So if you get one of the power-ups, it's a little bit like the rings in Sonic or the mushrooms in Mario, then you get another go as regular Widget. He's got an extendable arm that punches, whereas a lot of the distance isn't very long, so it's advantageous to turn to the other characters, because then you get some sort of more projectile attacks. Graphics are lovely, the controls are tight. This is a game which I don't see talked about very often, but it's one of the best platformers I've played recently. I think it stands up there with some of the best on Super Nintendo, so do check out Super Widget. It's published by Atlas, and Atlas obviously have a very good heritage, so that's one to check out if you haven't already played it. And where are we? I've lost my games. Okay, this is a game for the NES next that honestly I never thought I'd be able to get it, because I didn't realise I could play it. This is an American NES game. It's called Monster Party. You may have heard of this one because it's got a bit of a reputation because it has some really gory graphics in it, and that's actually what attracted me to the game. The monsters and the blood and the gore, but it's actually, on the surface, it seems to be quite a cute little platformer, but then things take a bit of a turn later on. You only have to get halfway through the first level where you realise that everything's not quite as it seems. You play a character who's got a baseball bat, which you hit your enemies with. You can also hit projectiles, fire them back at the enemies. It's got a sort of progression system where there's bosses in certain doors within the level. Some doors don't have any bosses behind, some do. It's a little bit like Wonder Boy in Monsterland on the Master System. So you jump in there, you might not be prepared for the boss, you have to work out a little bit the best strategy to attack it. Also, like Widgit, you can power up into different creatures. I think that's where the Monster Party title comes from. So there's frog's legs in the game. If you come up to one of these pairs of gigantic frog's legs and hit them, then you do that, I think, 2 or 3 times on different frog's legs, and then you can transform. You can transform to a dragon. Again, you've got projectile attacks and you can fly, which makes beating some of the bosses a little bit easier. Controls again are tight. There's a really weird thing you can do if you crouch. You could turn into a little worm. You lie flat on the ground and you can kind of move yourself in a little worm way, which is quite funny to watch. But I'd say, you know, on the whole, this is a game that appeals to my sensibilities immensely. It's a game I've wanted to play for a while. I realised I've got this NES adapter for the Super Nintendo, so I can plug NES games into my Super Nintendo and play it through that, because that's the only way I've got to play an American NES game. My NES itself, I don't have any adapters or anything to let me play these sorts of things, so that's really cool. I realised my Super Nintendo was stuck in its NTSC mode, so I think it also helped with the compatibility of this American game. It's in great condition. It's not the cheapest game. I think maybe, again, it's like £15 this one, and that's unboxed. But if you can find it, I do recommend it. It's a lot of fun. And lastly, we have Legends of Wrestling. Going a bit modern here. As modern as you can get with PS2. You may have heard this game. It was 50p. This isn't the most amazing game on the planet, but I do seem to be collecting wrestling games. I like wrestling games. I like wrestling. This one came out at a time when I don't know if you could play as classic Hulk Hogan, at least in any modern sort of wrestling game. So it gives you the option to play as others like Bret Hart and Terry Funk, Legion of Doom. Who else is in here? Apparently Rob Van Dam is in here. Gary Lawler. So yeah, it's an okay wrestling game. It's very cartoony in its presentation. It plays well enough. Its combat system is totally different to any other wrestling games about at the time. So you really must read the instructions, or I don't know if there's an in-game tutorial. I just jump straight into an exhibition match. So a bit of this. Oh, chocolate. And yeah, it took me a while to get to grips with the controls. Also, I couldn't work out a pin for life for me, so the match went on until I got a knockout. But yeah, Rob Van Dam is in this game. I'm not sure why. He is definitely not, well, in terms of some of these characters, not a legend of wrestling, but a good wrestler all the same. Yeah, anyway, back to the game. It's alright. Its presentation seems a little bit lackluster, but it's not terrible by any means. And it plays fine. It's just a bit different than most of the wrestling games, and maybe the hit detection isn't particularly good. But I can't really criticise too heavily because it only cost me 50p. So it was actually fun for what I played of it, but it's not one of those wrestling games I think I'm going to come back to a lot. But it's certainly competent, and you get a bit of fun out of this one if you decide to pick it up. So that is everything for this episode of Parry's Pickups, and you should have seen some gameplay footage in this video once I've edited that in. I was able to record that using my new setup that I've got here. It's actually changed a little since last time. There's been an addition. if you watch a last video, you will have seen that if I turn this around here, I've got this set up now over here with the PS4, Xbox One, and you know, up here, if we can get to it, is my video capture device, held by Mario, and now a new shelf where I've been able to put my PlayStation 4 games. The Xbox games are somewhere else. We'll move it slowly back round. There we go. So I'm fully prepared to do some more recording of gameplay footage. So you can expect to see a lot more of that in newer videos. So thanks again for checking out this episode of Parry's Pickups. I'm sure we'll be with you again sometime soon for another one. Until then, game on.